30% of the time. We're trying to be good enough. So we're not even aiming for 100% 30% of the time. We're aiming like 75%, 30%.
We need all sorts of people in this world. Imagine if we were all the little baby that was convenient, go with the flow, quite sort of chilled. You know, we couldn't have a fully functioning world if everyone was like that.
Ngala acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging in the spirit of reconciliation. We acknowledge the importance of children being raised with connection to culture, community and family. Hello.
Hello, Jen.
Hi.
Hi, Darya.
Hi.
Welcome to our podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So today we're talking about raising mentally healthy children and ways to support babies' social and emotional development. We know that bonding and attachment are really, really important. And we have Darya here to discuss this topic. So Darya, can you tell us who you are and what programs you're involved with at Ngala?
Sure. My name is Darya. I'm a psychologist and I am a mum of one and a prolific reader. And I am involved in the Little Minds Matter project at Ngala, which is a day stay program for parents and kids up to the age of 1. And we tackle social emotional development and attachment in that age group.
And you mentioned a term there, social and emotional wellness and development. Can you tease that apart and tell us what that sort of means?
Sure. And it looks really different depending on the age and stage of the child, right? So if we think about social emotional wellness in a 0 to 3 month old, which is the tiny little, we'll call them the blubs.
Yeah.
You know, the ones
Potatoes.
They might move like little aliens. Social emotional wellness for them would be how easy they are to settle, how responsive they are to you. And responsiveness is really like minute to that age, right? Turning to your voice, tracking you with their eyes once they're able, how flexible they are going to other people and experiencing new environments, how easily they're stimulated. But once we get a bit older, it also looks at the interactions and attachments with other people in the environment. So making and keeping friends, interest in peers, and that primary relationship with their main caregiver, whether it be mum or dad or a foster family.
Nice. Sometimes I've heard the term infant mental health and social and emotional wellbeing used interchangeably. Is that correct?
Definitely. Yes, I do think that's often used interchangeably. And if you Google the definition for infant mental health, they define social and emotional development. And they sort of, because it's hard to tease apart. When we think about infant mental health, when we say mental health, we imagine it as we do for adults. And then when you use that term with a baby, people go, babies don't have that. They don't have the stresses and worries of bills. They don't have to-do lists.
Yeah. A little
meal
boss
plans.
baby.
So for babies, that does look like that primary attachment and flexibility, if you will, in their environment. So they're kind of, you're right, interchangeable.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll say to a parent who rings up and is like, what is infant mental health? It's bonding and attachment.
Yep.
That attachment with their caregiver.
Definitely. And I think the other thing to think about is it's about expressing and regulating emotions and whatever appropriate method that looks like at their age.
Yeah.
And, you know, for the babies under 1 that we work with, often co-regulation is the goal, but how easily they accept your attempts at co-regulation, that all feeds into that infant mental health. Because some kids will be like, yeah, help me feel calmer. And some kids are like, no, thank you. I would like to feel anger alone.
And is that a temperament thing?
Some of that is, it would be temperament. And some of it is early attachment. So, you know, kids who have that secure attachment base might be more willing to take on a co-regulation place. And kids who've had that insecure early attachment might find it trickier to trust a grown-up that there will be a safe place to land.
So in terms of parents being able to impact the infant mental health or the social emotional wellness of their child, is that parental wellness could impact?
Definitely. And I think one of the primary predictors, you could say, of good infant mental health is parental wellness, which is why addressing early mental health concerns for mums, for example, you know, we've seen all the research on the impacts of postnatal depression on early attachment because parents aren't well and they aren't able to provide that secure base, and that has a really long-standing impact on attachment. So yes, 100%. And there's so many different facets of being well for a parent.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's, you know, ideally, good support would be lovely. Adequate time for education for parents, enough time for them to be supported and nurtured and given the time and space to adjust to their new parenting role. That would be really great. Some of that big systemic changes would be gold standard. If anyone's listening,
That's right.
please.
Yeah, help.
Help. Parents need more time.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, 100%. And there's that social connection, time for yourself, spiritual and emotional and cognitive, and having time for rest of all the different kinds. It's we made a mind map for our group of all the different ways to be well. And when we talk about it with parents, we say that sleep and rest and showering is actually only a really small part of feeling and being well. And how do you meet some of those other needs to make yourself feel at capacity to provide all that nurturing and attachment.
Filling your own cup in that way a little bit.
Yeah. But also being able to do that when you've just had a baby and you're now a completely different person to who you knew before.
And people fall in the trap of thinking about going back to the old them.
Yeah.
And then often we have discussions in groups about, okay, but she probably doesn't exist anymore. Because your priorities will never be the same as they were prior to children, because now you have someone to care for you didn't before. So then how do we create a new version of ourselves that is honoring the old version, but perhaps is more encompassing of some of those new priorities that you have in your life?
And feels true, like a true version of yourself.
Yeah. And not some clobbered pieces of together that you've tried to take from the old one, made with whatever's left over right now, whatever's left, and finding some of that priority.
Yeah. And you mentioned space before as well for the parent, and I think space to grieve that old person who never will be again is, very important. And we don't do that for parents.
No, we kind of expect them to
get on with it.
Get on with it. You got a cute baby.
Pull your socks up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Babies are great.
And you hear that a lot. You hear that, well, I just got on with it and I was okay and you turned out okay.
My favorite.
Yeah.
One of my favorite of my narratives. Yeah, but we did it that way and you guys are fine. Are we?
Yeah. Yeah, are we?
Truly. And I think for that, creating some of that space, again, that's systemic. Having enough, for dads, I think about dads a lot. 2 weeks. Yeah, clobber up this new version of you that is dad in 2 weeks.
And then back to work.
And crack on, yeah. And then support your partner too. Don't be a shitty husband or a shitty partner.
Make sure you bring home the bacon because we need money to pay the rent.
Yeah.
We're down to one income.
Yeah. Be nice to your partner. Make sure you're really caring for them, but also don't forget to be a great dad. And it's a lot of pressure. And I think with only 2 weeks to establish this new normal before you, say inverted commas, before you're thrust back into theoretically your old life, often in organizations that don't acknowledge you've had a shift is also not conducive to good outcomes. For dads, that doesn't set them up for success, I think.
No.
And for mums, you're then at home, you've lost part of your identity because you're probably not working, your social engagements have dropped off. And if you're not actively seeking to make new connections, then you can be really lonely and isolating, and then makes you less likely to feel well enough to tend to any of those attachments. And it can feel like a really tough job.
Yeah. It's nonstop.
And it never ends.
It's like Groundhog Day. That's what I say to new mums. It feels like you are stuck in a time loop. Every day is the same, but a bit different. And, it's just so hard.
And we often talk about, I know when my friends have new babies, the first thing I say to them is get out early. You don't have to go to the shops. You don't have to go out and people. Picnic blanket on the front lawn.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, picnic blanket on the back lawn.
A little bit of vitamin D goes a long way.
And that movement of being, feeling capable. Go to a coffee shop you've always gone to. Pack the pram, put the baby in, use the bag, set the time to be short. Go to a coffee shop that you know where the parking is, they have change facilities. Set yourself up for success. Yeah. And then practice unpacking the pram, unpacking the baby bag, unpacking the baby. And if you're there, get the coffee in a takeaway cup. Because then if things go pear-shaped, take your coffee back in the car and go home.
Don't order the eggs Benny. That's going to take
not the first time.
20 minutes to come. Yeah.
Definitely keep it short and sweet the first time. And then, what didn't work, and adjust yourself so that you're really trying to reach for those small milestones of being able to feel capable and competent at this new job.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that. We were talking in our first episode about parental competence and how it's a learned skill and it's learned through practice and through the doing of everyday life with this new little baby. So I love that you brought all that up. That was beautiful.
Definitely. And I think with parental competence, it's funny because we talk about the flip, which is no one's going to give you a tick or a gold star or a stamp for doing it well and doing it right. And so you're not going to get that, I'm nailing it, because then they grow and then everything changes again.
It's a moving target.
Yeah. So then how do you feel accomplishment in that moment with your baby without needing someone to be like, hey, that's, you're nailing it now, because in a month's time it's going to be entirely different.
That's very true of parenthood as well, is that they love to tell you when you're not doing it right. Yes. But no one says a thing when you're doing it beautifully and really well. And I think that needs to change. We need to really point out to parents when they are doing these beautiful jobs and they have these beautiful, well-attached children. So, yeah.
Definitely. And that starts in our circles, right?
Absolutely.
Compliment your friend on a job well done. Even if it's simple as being able to wrangle 2 kids into a car to get them to the park, which feels like a really big task. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it is.
It feels like
a
lot.
Yeah. When I run some groups that I run, I will always just say, just turning up, just being here today, getting out of the house is huge. So, yeah.
And there's a whole shift before that turn up, right?
That's right. They've been up. They've been doing it. They've been planning, the apprehension about leaving the house sometimes.
Packing up all the things, wrangling everyone to a vehicle.
Yep. And then that worry about how is my baby going to be when I'm out and about in the real world?
What will people think of me as I wrangle my baby in this new place?
And then you get that performative parenting, which is really makes me feel very sad for parents that they're out there trying to do their best job, but they're so worried about society and what we're thinking of them.
And I think making spaces in the world that welcome children and babies. I think there's still parts in the world where I'm a bit notorious for bringing my child to places where I look around and I'm like, there's no other kids here.
Yep.
This will be interesting.
We're always worried about that, aren't we? But I think as well, I always say to parents, never feel guilty for bringing your children, because people are entitled to a child-free life, but you're not entitled to a child-free world. And children have as much right to be in spaces, as long as they're not adults-only spaces, but in spaces as adults
restaurants, coffee
airplanes,
shops. Airplanes.
These children exist.
Public transport.
Yeah.
Airplanes are my favorite example when I talk about neurobiology, because I talk about our need to soothe and to comfort, and that how it's biologically wired within us. And so I always give the example of the person on the plane. I usually say, you can picture him, can't you? He's of a certain age, and he's definitely a he, and he's sitting there and he's making a face and he's probably grumbling very loudly about the crying baby. But his biology is screaming to try and settle this baby. But if he did it, it would be weird and probably wildly unwelcome. And he doesn't have the regulation skills to be able to calm himself in that moment. And so that comes out as, why is there babies on the plane? Can't you just shut that baby up? Which hopefully in our day and age, there'll be a few people around you to come to your defense.
Oh, yeah. If it was me on that plane, absolutely, I'd be
hold
there.
Me back.
Yeah, that's right.
Or in the flip side, people are like, wow, he's so good on the plane. I was like, yes, thank you.
Good.
Glad he was convenient for you. What you mean is convenient.
Good is an interesting word that we use to describe babies a lot. A good baby.
Yep.
And it really does
Are
just
they a
mean
good baby?
Just mean that they're making us comfortable.
And when people try and label, I always say like, oh, you mean a convenient baby. Convenient for you because he didn't disrupt your experience. He didn't interfere with yours. So, it was conveniently placed. Well,
I love that.
I really like that. That's a really nice way to reframe that, because when we use the word good, we're actually indicating that there is a bad version.
Exactly, yeah.
Which we know that there's no bad babies.
And when people say, bad or spoiled babies, I'm always like, ooh, what would that look like? I go on, define it for me.
Evil baby.
Yeah. Speak to that.
Is there a shiv? Like, what's a bad baby? Did he rob a liquor store before nap time?
Little baby bandana.
Yeah. Does he have a gang? And when you say that, when people usually roll their eyes and like, no, just, babies who cry a lot. I'm like, so babies trying to get their needs met. And as soon as you start to call people out on their definitions, people can't hold it. It's not grounded in experience. It's this theoretical idea of a bad baby. Because once you say, okay, so tell me what that looks like, people actually can't narrow it down.
There is no bad babies.
There's no bad babies.
No.
Just babies who are trying to get their needs met.
That's right.
So reframing good babies as convenient babies. one term good, one version of the word good that we do use is the good enough mother or the good enough parent a lot. And we touched on that in our first episode too. How does that link, how does being good enough, how does that link in with wellness and raising mentally healthy children?
Well, I guess if we're thinking about being well parents, if we're focused on being great parents 100% of the time, there's not actually any room to be well. You're not able to then prioritize yourself in that shift. There's no space for you. And then how are you going to make time for your own well-being to then be a good enough parent, at least even the 30% of the time? How do we manage that? So my thoughts are within that 30%. I assume that was the statistic we used. Yep.
Yeah, we actually didn't mention it.
We
Can
didn't,
you speak
but
a little bit more to the 30%? What's that referring to?
So it's that good enough parenting 30% of the time. So, we're trying our best for that 30% of the time. We're trying to be good enough. So we're not even aiming for 100% 30% of the time. We're aiming like 75%, 30% of the 30%. Yeah.
What's happening in the other 70%?
We're doing as well as we can with the skills that we have and the capacity that we have. We're not, doing putting the baby to the side, but we are then thinking about other things outside of the zone of the baby, right? Because if we're focused purely on the one facet that is child rearing, and that's the performative parenting.
Yeah.
Then we forget about all the other parts that need to happen for a house to run, for a child to have a full life, for you to be a full human being, to enjoy all the things that life's got to offer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that 70% is all of that, and then that 30% is the good enough or the whole picture is the good enough. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like the 30% feels arbitrary because in the end you're really trying to be good enough a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You're trying to be just good enough.
All the time.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think the other important part of that is starting each day fresh.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that if one day doesn't go well, things don't go to plan, you do more screen time than you planned, you, eat more junk food than you hoped, you have,
You have an unsettled baby for a prolonged period of that day.
Yes, witching hour is actually witching day. And then you can go to bed and sleep for however long you're allowed to, and then you're permitted. And then when you wake up, you try and start the day fresh.
Yeah.
I think screen time is a good example because I think it's the most sort of concrete. You've offered your toddler or small child too much. The next day you can change the rules for that. You can be like, oh, actually there was too much yesterday. We're going to do less today. It doesn't have to be like an endless cycle. You can break it with each, rising sun.
We see that a lot on the parenting line that, people, again, it's that catastrophizing, say they've had a really hard day or hard morning and their little baby hasn't slept well or hasn't fed well, and then they start thinking, okay, that means that night is going to fall apart, and then tomorrow we've got that doctor's appointment, we have to get to the hospital, and how are we going to do that? So I do like that concept to say, well, this day will end. This day will end and another will start, and your baby will sleep at some stage, with hopefully the support of lactation consultants, and your baby will feed at some point. And things will find a new equilibrium in a new day, and so I do like that kind of starting afresh as a way of supporting parents to move past when things aren't going to plan.
And we, in our program we also say dysregulated parents don't get to regulate babies. I mean, it doesn't, that example of middle of the night, it's 1 a.m. someone's been screaming for about an hour and a half. You're you can feel yourself, your biology is rising. You're like, why is this baby still crying? The baby's still crying. And in comes the knight in shining armor.
Yeah, the calm.
The calm. And then the husband, partner, whoever takes the baby, the mother-in-law, and suddenly the baby stops crying. And straight away mums go, oh, that means it's me.
Yeah.
I'm a bad parent. I can't do this. Other people can settle my baby better than me. But then we always come back to, actually, you gave it a red hot crack for an hour and a half.
You're in there for an hour and a half.
Your biology now, you are so dysregulated, there's no way the baby could feed off that and also be regulated. You've got nothing left to give. This other person comes well rested and calm, and then they, of course, can regulate a baby because they're regulated themselves. And another example of this would be, my friends and I used to swap babies at the coffee shop. When you're getting get a little flustered because your baby starts crying and everyone starts looking, and I know better and I'm still flustered. And a friend goes, hey, do you want me to hold that baby for you? And you give them their baby and you take their baby, and suddenly it's not a problem because that's not my baby. I'm not meant to be able to soothe that, I say in inverted commas. And so suddenly the pressure is off and you can be more relaxed.
That's such a great thing to do. I love it because it's an easy thing that can happen for a lot of mums.
And especially when you're in groups, there's 4 or 5 of you, and suddenly there's more than one crying baby, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, is it time to leave? Are we disrupting everybody?
Yeah.
And sometimes
do a baby swap.
Shift. Yeah. Just pass some babies around and if there's some baby free hands, lend someone a baby.
Yeah.
I think it's finding that balance and trying to be regulated and seeking the help when you need it to know where the limit is for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get to a point and even though your brain's giving you the shoulds and the catastrophizing and the that's the moment to call in your backup if you've got it.
Yeah. If you're lucky enough.
If you're lucky enough to have it. It is much more difficult to do that without it. But you can always, put the baby down, go have a cold drink of water.
Yes.
Splash some water on your face, take a few deep breaths.
Yes.
Reset, and then try and come back a little bit more regulated.
And we spoke about that in the first episode as well, of the responsiveness and being with and not trying to fix. Yeah. So that is something that we do mention to mums a lot on the parenting line, is that being with and trying to help them see that that is enough sometimes. But when your, cortisol levels are rising and your shoulders are up by your ears and you've got this screaming baby, it's very hard to be with in that moment.
Yeah, and it's the 12th wake up.
Yeah, and you're exhausted.
Yeah. And fatigue is such a big factor in parents' ability to regulate, kids' ability, or anybody's really.
Yeah. How can your brain do all that work if it's, not running on, 100%?
Yeah, if we're thinking about, our amygdala and all our basic human needs, we're thinking about like sleep and rest and safety, food and safety. And our brains are just like the lizards, right? If we don't meet those needs, it's really hard to access that prefrontal cortex, higher order thinking, because we're too busy trying to meet our basic needs, trying to balance the two.
Darya, you've spoken really beautifully about parent wellness, and you did touch a little bit on what we're looking for when we talk about infant mental health and infant social and emotional wellbeing. Can we tease that apart a little bit more? So what are mentally healthy infants, and how does that link with developmental milestones?
Great. Okay, so in terms of, again, mentally healthy infants look different at every stage depending on where they are in their development. So if we're thinking about mentally healthy infants, under the age of 1, obviously, very early on, we're getting that contact, we're getting some interest in you, then we're going towards, if we're thinking about movers and crawlers, thinking about more willing to go out and explore the world. It's that, circle of security being our hands and going out and seeing the world and coming back to you for reassurance. All of those are signs of and mentally healthy infant. When we're thinking about their ability to explore, to learn, to express emotions, to regulate them, obviously in an age-appropriate way. And then there's that difference between when we're thinking about things that aren't going well in infant mental health, we're looking at there's a very large facet, but somewhere between inconsolable crying and not taking that co-regulation opportunities to a lack of engagement. And that will look really different depending on the age and stage and on the child themselves. So thinking about talking to parents who know their baby best. Is this normal for you, baby? Is this, even sometimes like, oh, this is really different to my last child that I had. This is my third, for example. And then, okay, and this is really different from last time. How is it different?
Yeah.
Is it that they're really disengaged, or is it that you had a super pliable, happy-go-lucky, easy to get, easy, flexible child? Flexible child.
Convenient.
Is it that you had a really convenient baby last time, and this baby has needs that need to be met, and they're really vocal about getting them met, and trying to tease apart what that looks like. And I guess that's something we talk about in our program. Parents who often feel that there is something at play for their infant in terms of not negative infant mental health, almost a lack of mental health, if they will, in their infant. Once you get to watch them interact with their baby, it's often that catastrophizing. There's something stressful, and then I'm struggling to see, I'm worried this will impact our relationship. And when they come to the program, we get the opportunity to watch them interact, watch them play together, watch them interact with other babies. And we're offering some guided feedback, being like, you're really worried about attachment, but every time you move, baby checks in, has a really good look at you. Someone enters the room, baby tracks the movement, or there's a few friends on the mat, and even though you've got just a tummy timer, not on the move, they're really watching the other babies move around. And all of those sort of flexibility signs are good predictors of good mental health.
And maybe as well then you can give that feedback and contextualise that maybe some of those other challenges that your experiences might be related to temperament or personality, and that we can also explain to parents that we need all sorts of people in this world. Imagine if we were all the little baby that was convenient, go with the flow, quite sort of chilled. You know, we couldn't have a fully functioning world if everyone was like that.
Yes.
And I often talk to parents and explain that we're, you know, human beings, every one of us is different, yet somehow we sort of expect babies to be a little bit all the same.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly the case. You know, as they start to show their personality, their temperament, we see differences, and there's always the strengths and then the kind of shadow side of that personality trait.
Yeah.
But we need all sorts of people in the world, and we need all those babies in the world as well.
We do.
And definitely once they hit into that talking, walking toddler stage, there's that, like, you know, that's a really bossy toddler. And I was like, oh, wow, kid who can give direction. That's really cool.
Determined.
Yeah.
Positive words.
Yeah, really great at, you know, asking to get their needs met, really great at knowing the direction they want their day to take. And then how do we help parents reframe some of that and perhaps change some of our language that we use as a society about how we parent little people, to be little people, not little clones. We want them to be their own members of society eventually. I think another good predictor of infant mental health is that early interaction with a caregiver. So it's that gentle words, gentle touch. It's the connection that they offer, and, you know, play and stimulation. And I think play and stimulation is easy to conceptualize. We can think about, you know, for a little baby, it's gazing lovingly at one another. That's about it. Then their arms start swinging. There might be a mobile involved or a hanging rack with toys on it. It could be under a blanket, under a tree, and that's enough. And then we need a bit more. Maybe there's blocks, maybe there's cars, maybe there's other kids and grass and pebbles, whatever. And stimulating environments can be the adult environments we discussed before, places where other people are doing things, places where they can do things and touch things and explore. And then as well as having someone along for the ride with them who will help guide and support them in that exploration of the world.
Yeah, that's so great.
I always talk to parents that the world is a sensory experience for really little babies, especially in that first sort of 3 months, because sometimes we'll get a call being like, you know, I don't know how to interact with my baby. I don't know what games to do with them. I don't know how to support their development. And again, OT me is just like, well, the world is a sensory experience. You know, that shadow that's coming through from your blinds in your living room, that's interesting and engaging. Your baby's never seen that contrasted swaying of colours. You doing the laundry, sitting them up in a bouncer, them watching you, all of that is rich experience, and it's opportunity for you to be jibber-jabbering away. Something I wanted to mention was the way we talk to babies. You even were using a sort of a different tone in your voice. Can you talk a little bit about that? Well, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Motherese.
Motherese or parentes.
Parentes. Yeah. So yes, we use a different tone and pitch for little babies, and we usually enunciate how we say words. And often you'll see that if you're talking to a baby, we don't talk to a baby like turned away. We always look them straight on, and we're really moving our mouths and seeing if they're looking at us.
And our eyebrows.
The eyebrows. We might even flick our tongue more, make really exaggerated facial expressions. And I think the research I've read links that with really a much more robust language acquisition, because it catches their attention. They also cues them towards looking to you because they know you're talking to them now. You're not talking to the other boring grown-ups. And then they're really watching how you form those sounds, which is why I think there's some really lovely videos out there about accents and lilts, and how if I listen to my son talk, he actually might sound more like me than my husband because I produce more words than my husband in a day. And it's that capturing of all that movement and the sounds we make, because that's what they're going to try and recreate once they start talking.
Yeah, it's a great strategy, and it's a great approach to take, and I think we all naturally do it.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be nice to talk about some other things parents can do as well.
Definitely. I think one of the things we talk about in our program, and I'm sure other parents already do it naturally, but it's putting that label to that skill, and that's serve and return.
Yeah.
Don't know if you guys, once I start talking, you guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about, which is the idea that a baby or a child makes a move towards an activity of interest, and you have an interaction based on that. So the Harvard Institute for the Development of Children has a really lovely tip sheet, and I can send the link to you guys, and maybe you can attach it to the podcast, because that might be something interesting people can access, because it's literally a step-by-step on how to do serve and return well.
Amazing.
And why each step exists for parents who need a bit more why than just the how, for some parents. And so the first step is, like we talked, it's the notice and sharing your kid's attention. So let's go with an infant. It's staring at you and you've stared back. With a crawler, it could be moving towards a block and grabbing the block, and you've noticed that they've noticed the block. With a toddler, it's the, hey, mum, come look. Or what's this? Right? So that brings us to our next step, which would be you return the serve by commenting or supporting and encouraging. So the third step would be naming it and labeling it, and I usually include those two together because I'm really terrible at doing two without three. So two would be like with a crawler, they've crawled up, they've picked up the block, they've turned to you, you've gone, wow, you've got a block. That's really cool. You've labeled it, you've shared their attention. With a baby, you might make a really exaggerated facial expression and stick your tongue out, right? Because then that's the serve. With our, hey, what's this? Look what I found. Example of a walking and talking child. You might, oh my goodness, that's a gum nut. That's so cool. Have you picked it up? You pick up the gum nut. You've served it. In the labeling, and I think as we talked about language acquisition before, this is another piece of fun research, is that parents who narrate, parents who label inanimate objects or animate objects throughout the day are far more likely to have a greater acquisition of language in robustness, in use, and in complexity in their children, and the speed at which they acquire language. They found that doesn't change whether the language is verbal or signed.
Wow.
So parents who sign more words in a day than parents who do less, their kids acquire language at a similar frequency as spoken language.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Showing that we're all primed for language. We're looking for it. Kids are looking to take that on. So the more you offer, the more they absorb.
So walking around your house with your newborn baby, just jibber-jabbering,
you
already feel a little bit
you may as well.
unhinged. So you might as well just start talking to yourself and your baby.
Mixing the flour to make the cupcakes. Shall we put a banana in? I think so. Grab a banana. Look, it's a banana. Look at it. Notice it. Pass it. All that language that I think some people do quite naturally.
Yeah.
But some people need a bit of reminding that is really important in that early language acquisition.
Even that 0 to 3 month period.
Yes,
just talking.
Because again, kids who have a hearing delay, who have not picked up sort of hearing loss or not flagged in that infant screening, or we saw this quite a bit over COVID where infant screenings were missed. If there's a hearing issue that isn't picked up in that block, that actually delays language going forward.
Yeah.
And it takes them quite a bit to catch up. They do. By the time they hit primary school, they have all caught up. But in that early stage, that can really link to a delayed language, which again tells us that they are listening in that 0 to 3 months, that is really important. Because if they weren't, that wouldn't have an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that, so we've labeled it, the block, the gum nut, the
banana,
facial expression, banana, whatever you're labeling. And then the next point is the wait. So you imagine it like a game of tennis. You've thrown the ball, you've done your serve, you've bounced to the other track, and you're waiting for them to serve it back. As grown-ups, we're really great at taking up all the airtime because we're so excited. and we've got the moment, right? We've noticed, we've got the block, we're all really excited. And then you go, wow, that is a block. The block is green. You can build with blocks. Do you want me to show you? And you've now taken over the play. It's no longer child-led. It's you-led. And it can be tricky because kids are like, I just wanted to show you the block. This is a lot. I'm going to put it down. I'm done now. And so catching ourselves, waiting for that return back. And then, again, step 5 would be taking their lead. So whether they, I'm going to use a crawler example, crawled up, picked up the block, turned to you, you've gone, wow, that's a block, it's green, isn't that cool? And then he goes, well, is it for you? And you take the, oh, thank you so much. Is that for me? I love blocks. Taking that's that interaction. They've done that second serve back to you. You've labeled it, you've taken it. That's your next interaction. And then you're waiting to see what happens next. Does the baby clap, go for another block? Or he goes, done with blocks now, move to the cars. If you stay on the blocks, you've missed it. because that was the moment that they were taking the lead.
Yeah.
And then with that, we're learning their cues, right? And we're learning them, teaching them that other people also tune to their cues and their ways to communicate. With our walking, talking gum nut example, oh, it's a gum nut. Kid looks and goes, yeah, all right, it's a gum nut. Throws it into the pond, it splash it, looks back at you. Look, did you see? I did. Do you want to throw some more? Serve? Kid goes, yeah. And we pick up more gum nuts. Or we've stayed in the moment. Kids goes, no. Probably then don't offer more gum nuts.
Yeah.
Take the moment. Little babies are a harder example only because it's more nuanced.
Yeah.
You're looking for a blink and a look away. You're looking for
little smile.
Maybe.
That might not be gas or might be gas.
It's always a smile.
The kicking of the feet. It might be a giggle. They might try and copy you with the tongue.
Yeah.
Because that's really fun, isn't it? When they start to be like, oh,
raspberries.
do that.
Yeah.
I want to stick my tongue out too.
It's really hard with that age group because you can miss it. And if you are a brand new parent, I always say to them, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know that is what is happening in that moment, you might, miss that moment.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's okay to get it wrong too.
Absolutely.
Like it's all about the, attempt. And then the more you attempt to do it, the more you practice, the more you'll be able to pick up on those nuances particularly in those early few months and weeks.
And this is why I think you would get lots of those calls, parents being like, I don't know how to play with my baby. Because I don't think people have really thought about what play looks like in those early years. Yeah. The early years, in the first 3 months.
3 months.
Because it's not throwing a ball with the gum nuts, right? It's not crawling and playing with blocks. It is that nuanced time together and that connection, that serve and return, that eye contact, that movement, that their little alien movements and watching them and commenting and offering some narration.
Yeah. Like you as the parent are the best toy.
Yeah, that's what we always say. Yeah. It's just being with and being their playmate.
Yeah. And at that point, the sensory experiences are laying on your chest, feeling your heartbeat, your hands on them, gentle touch, all that stuff.
The vibration of your breathing, of your heart rate, all of that. And even just that body contact that we talk about skin to skin, and it's that deep pressure, it's that proprioceptive touch.
Yeah, your voice, which
going
they've heard
outside.
from going out. Yeah.
Just like wind on their face and just
So existing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your voice that they've heard from utero, talking to them, because that would be really soothing.
Reading to them, like I say, it doesn't have to be a baby book. Just we change our voice so you can read them anything, and it's about those moments.
I've definitely read some boring nonfiction to my son before. And another good example, I think, looking back, I have videos of my son at that, 0 to 3 month age. And I've definitely seen times where I've missed the cue.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, that's him. He must have been tired. And I would have continued the engagement because I was having a really good time. And learning some of those cues for your baby would be different.
Yeah, you've got to get it wrong to learn.
Yeah. You can be like, oh, there it was.
Yeah,
I missed it.
that's right. I missed it, but now I know.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And same with once, the walking and the talking. I still catch myself sometimes saying something, be like, oh, that'll catch me later. You would definitely bring that up. I'm going to be held to that until the nth degree.
They remember.
Yeah. Never forget.
My son's memory is incredible.
Yeah, for 3, I'm really held to account. So I guess when we think about bringing that all together and conceptualizing the importance, you've connected with your baby, you've noticed their cues, you've labeled it and offered some language, and then you've encouraged them to explore their environment. Because I guess in the end, our ultimate goal is to have well-attached children and then well-attached adults going out in the world, exploring and, seeing it for themselves.
Okay.
Well, Darya, thank you. It's been so lovely talking with you. You've shared lots of amazing strategies as well as really conceptualizing some theories and some evidence-based practices. So thank you for being here today. And
it's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks, Darya.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Parenting with Ngala. The topics covered in our podcast are general in nature and the information might not suit everyone. If you're in Western Australia and would like to chat about a specific challenge, you can talk directly to the Ngala parenting line by calling 9368 9368. For all other links and resources, check out the Ngala website and the show notes below. Thank you again and see you next time.